All right, let's welcome back to Straight Fire a guy who hasn't done this podcast in a minute. He hasn't done any podcasts in 14 months. The man of mystery, Adam Chernoff, gambling savant, gambling
No, I don't.
legend.
I don't like
Adam.
Savant. Let's pull that out of there.
Okay, all
Let's
right.
keep
We'll take
going though.
savant out. We'll just go with Adam Chernoff, gambling guru. But he's been a man of mystery. He's tough to track down. I've been beating this guy down. I've been following his weightlifting exploits on Instagram. Adam, you're a beast now. Holy cow!
There's been some life changes, to put it lightly, but I'm feeling good, doing well. Last year was very, very good. We had if you remember, an interview last April that was a lot of fun. Have been doing this now for about 5 or 6 years, so I'm happy to be back and happy to be back doing media.
Yeah.
It's been a long time, so hopefully I'm not too rusty.
He had to take a hiatus. I don't know if he'll want to get into it, but now he's like a power lifter. He's a golfer. I mean, before we get into the gambling, just in terms of life changes, Adam, would you call this a midlife crisis, a midlife awakening? Is there, am I
Can a
going
midlife
overboard?
crisis happen at age 33,
Oh
age
my
34?
gosh, jeez.
Maybe. I
Holy
don't know.
cow. All
I
right.
might not
That's not
make it
even
much
close to
past
midlife.
70, but
That's like quarter
um,
past. Yeah.
the honest truth. So for 3 years, as you know, was betting professionally with a big betting group out of California. And when you're doing that every day for the better part of 8, 9 months a year, it takes a bit of a toll mentally, physically. And so I was in pretty rough shape. The scale was a big number. And so it was
Mm.
a good switch back. I've been putting in some work the last 8 or 9 months and getting healthier and getting things sorted out. So in a really, really good spot now. Had a lot of fun those years, and now it's on to some new things. So still betting the NFL heavily, but the college basketball daily grind, the offseason CFL grind and UFL grind and everything that came with that, no longer. So a little bit easier going
That's
lifestyle
good.
now.
Real quick, are you doing any World Cup betting? Because I'm not saying I've been on a generational heater, but
Oh, baby.
things
You
are good.
can't tease generational heater and
No, I
then
know
walk
that's
it
just kind of a
back.
joke among some buddies I text with. But I just first of all, World Cup. Your quick thoughts?
It's the one time every 4 years that my wife watches sports. And so she's
Oh,
Colombian. So spend a
ooh,
lot of our winters and have been there for a few years as well in the past. So directly tied to that team. So I am Colombia to win and Lucho goal scorer every single match as long as it'll go. And so 1 for 1 last week. We'll see coming up against the Congo if it can go 2 for 2. But he looks damn good, and hopefully they make a deep run for entertainment, but nothing serious betting wise.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
no
okay.
generational heater from my
No, Jen.
perspective.
Well, I mean, it's more of like okay, so obviously the AI revolution is happening, and I dove into Claude a little bit, and I
Oh,
do
baby.
the co-work, and I decided, my goal this summer is I'm going to build a model for the World Cup. I'm going to build a model for NFL, and I'm going to see what I can do with it. And the model had a couple misses early, but then it got pretty hot. And I don't know if this will translate to the NFL, but I am curious, how much are you using AI for your analysis? Whether it's Google Gemini, I'm off Chat GPT, but I find Claude pretty incredible.
I didn't. That almost took a weird turn from World Cup into AI. So I'm glad we went back to this one. It's a good question. I would say 2 years ago, within the betting group, really started implementing it. Uh, Notebook LM, which is a Google product, is really, really good because it doesn't take outside research and it's directly tied into YouTube. So for coach press conferences at scale, player interviews, pulling out quotes, sort of putting a bunch of different previews all together and being able to search within it has been super valuable from a time saving perspective. In terms of other usages, like coordinates being input for weather to get, instead of saying, okay, I have to go through 16 different or 14 different stadiums, depending on the week with dome games, and pull out all the weather, just getting live weather right away. That's been really useful. Looking at things like key numbers, changes, and putting together a bunch of stats and box scores very quickly. That's been very useful too. So I haven't got to the point, it sounds like, where you're predicting games and making money from it. But in terms of saving time, I've probably freed up 12-ish hours a week from
Wow.
within like a full NFL betting week of just not having to watch like coaches go on for 12, 15 minutes saying nothing to find out one quote. You can get that right away. So that's been very useful for that.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. Obviously, we're still 4 months out from the NFL, and it's too exciting to get pumped up about some of these over unders and totals and stuff. But I'm just curious: have you seen anything in this off season overarching that you think kind of is a big macro trend heading forward? Whether it's what some of the stuff McVay was doing last year with the three tight end sets, it seems like there was a lot of defensive movement, some interesting coordinator hires. But anything overall big picture that jumps out when it comes to the NFL?
Okay, a couple things. Big picture is how much stock do you put in last season? I feel
Mm,
like every week, when are the Bears going to fall off with all of the luck? What happened to the Commanders? Are the Patriots for real, or is this a really bad schedule? Is Darnold for real? Is this team back? Are the Broncos for real with Knicks, and where does this go? There was so much doubt around so many teams. And there were also a lot of teams that fell off from the year prior going into that year.
okay.
So, how do you think about Detroit going into this year? How do you think about Washington going into this year? How do you think about Chicago coming into this year? That's kind of number one is how much stock you putting in last season and where the things bounce back. Another thing that really stands out, like you mentioned, the three tight ends, is that going to be copied? Does that slow down games? Does that change pace? There's a lot of under center usage with play action being discussed and talked about. Which quarterbacks fit that well? Is that going to benefit someone like AJ Brown in New England with Drake May, who's very
Mm,
good at that matching receiver? Changes like that. There's, I think, 21 new play callers, coordinators, 10 new head coaches. How much does that change? Have there been too much buy-in to the youth movement across the league with some inexperienced coaches? Another one I would throw out at you is something that I've really pushed in a lot of media and things that I've done, and something I believe in is these guys that failed as head coaches that were really good coordinators that get to go back to being coordinators. I think is a really, really interesting topic. My stance is let great coordinators stay great coordinators,
hmm
especially in modern NFL. And we're seeing so many early promotions, but you have now a guy like McDaniel going back, being an OC. I love the interviews so far. You have a guy like Dayball going back to be an OC. Like, think about those Buffalo offenses. Those were amazing. So that's another fun one. So lots from just a high level subjective stance this
mm.
season that's really fun to talk about.
So the team that jumps out that the biggest question mark to me is the Baltimore Ravens. And they have the highest win total that I've seen, 11 and a half. Yet they have a first time head coach in Minter, a first time play caller in Declan Doyle, and a quarterback coming off an injury ish season who still doesn't have the contract he wants. I didn't see any upgrades on offense. I think they lost two tight ends, kept the starter. I don't get it, Adam. 11 and a half, the schedule. I'm missing something in this, but I don't know. Are the Ravens on your radar at all? Were you surprised by 11 and a half?
Not surprised by it. I'm not going to a spot where I'm going over. I was talking
Sure.
with someone from another group, and they were just dead adamant that they're going to win that division. I like it from the aspect of you have a refresh for a culture that was strong but had become a bit stale, especially in bigger games. Just these
Mm-hmm.
weird collapses season after season that were so costly. Maybe that gets a bit of a refresh now with the coaching staff coming in and a new look that's going to save them from these games where they fall off. I think the offense is still going to be very explosive. I like Minter coming in and what he brings to the defense and how that can look. I just have a hard time buying into any of the AFC North teams over the course of the season running out to put up that kind of win total when there's some level of questions within the team. It's just not a division,
Mm-hmm.
much like the NFC North on the other side, that I'm just super excited to lay that big of a number and go over. So I get why it's there just because of all the talent and the upside. But yeah, you're not getting me on the over, Jason.
All right. So, what teams do jump out to you, whether over or under? Everybody loves this Rams, Miles Garrett.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll let you go. I'll let you cook on that.
I've really, in the last like 3 to 4 weeks, started going into previews and forming opinions on teams. And like you said, the Rams are the consensus Super Bowl team in the NFC. Like
Yeah.
every preview I'm reading, Rams, 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 Rams. And on the other side, it's the Bengals. Again, from
Yes.
that AFC
Schedule.
division of hell on that side. For me, Chargers win the Super Bowl. I
Oh, gee. Wait a minute. Wait. This is Justin
I told you
Herbert who
I
has
texted
zero
you when you forgot my email after all these years and said I'm coming in with opinions and I'm not going to
that
hold back because it's been a long hiatus.
Chargers.
Chargers,
I mean, I like them, but oh my gosh, this probably goes to Mike McDaniel, like you said, coordinator goes to Miami. He was a good coach, good head coach, maybe not a great head coach. Got to the playoffs twice, and now he goes back to being a coordinator. Interesting.
I like it. I haven't seen a lot of talk about it, which quietly makes me like it a little bit more. I think
Certainly.
Harbaugh has proven back-to-back double-digit wins. They haven't got the playoff win, but both of these years he has been there. Hell of a coach. It's been offensive line injury after
Mm-hmm.
offensive line injury after offensive line injury. Herbert dealing with an injury, these old wide receivers breaking down, and still they're getting double digit wins, getting to the playoffs. They've just been a team that's broken down. Now you have an offensive coordinator who has been praised for having some of the most creative offenses in the last 6 or 7 years in the NFL, putting up crazy numbers. Love what he's doing on field, how he's interacting with players. I love what he brings to the team. But they invested so much in the offensive line. And last year, when Alt and Slater were both healthy and this team could operate as they wanted, oh my God, they looked so good. And
Yeah.
so I'm I'm not a believer as well-rounded as Denver is at carrying over what they did last year into this year. I have questions there. I have a lot of questions about the turnover in KC on both sides of the ball. And I look at LA as this team that's been right there the last couple of years with so many issues that now has just depth at where they've been hurt the most. And a QB in Herbert, I think, wins the MVP, and a team that I think has a monster season. So to me, the Chargers are the breakout team in the AFC. There's more
So
on both sides, but that's the
yeah.
adamant stance I'll take right now.
So they were a team that I did notice. They got Njoku, and then they go get Charlie Kohler, the blocking tight end. Lord, he was a good catcher at Iowa State, but they're a team that got three tight ends, and I wonder if we'll see some new stuff from Harbaugh. Fun wrinkle: about a month ago, I go to my gym and I go to get up shots usually on game day because I'm a loser who plays rec league basketball and then practices shooting earlier in the
You
day.
got the Instagram reels going pretty
I'm
consistent on
trying.
that deep
Yeah,
jumper. Don't
yeah, I'm
undersell what's
trying.
going on here on a daily basis.
So I go to the gym and I can, as I walk up, I see it's packed. All these big guys are playing. I'm like, damn it. And I walk in, I'm like, these aren't normal guys. And it was like half the Chargers defense was in there. And of course, I go talk to Jerwin James, who's like very clearly the alpha. And he's like kind of reffing, and all these guys were joking around. And I start talking to the guys, and I'm like, these are like, these guys are really connected. And I mean, obviously, that applies nothing to gambling here, but they were friendly, outgoing. They really are a connected group. I like this Chargers pick outside the box, man. Maybe and the Super Bowl's at SoFi, right?
It shouldn't be outside the box for how good of a team is. But the
Yeah.
real question: how many points did you put up
No,
against
I
Virginia
didn't
Tech?
play. No way am I getting going
God,
with those guys. No
you're okay
way.
going up to talk
They
to them.
were
You're not going to
asking
go.
who's got next. Trey Harris, I think, was the best guy out there, the wide receiver. But I was like, I'm not. No shot. No shot.
Okay.
Interesting. So, Buffalo Bills lose tough one in Denver in the playoffs. It's not talked about much, but Josh Allen was quite bad in that game. I think he had 4 turnovers. Bo Nix gets hurt at the end. They end up firing the head coach. They promote the OC. What are we to make of the Bills? Is that run over or not really?
It's never over as long as Josh Allen is
Josh Allen,
there.
right?
So I'm not going to say it's over. Boy, I don't. There's so much pressure on the incoming staff to get the big win deep in the playoffs. Did they add enough? I'm not convinced that they did, but again, like I'm not going to sit here and undersell the Bills when you have Josh Allen in that offense,
Yeah.
and um, there's not much like what we were just talking about with the Ravens. Like they're priced to where they are, and they are what they are, and there's not really a stance that I'm going to take one way or the other with them. But as long as Allen is there, I mean, I'd be crazy to say that this is a team that's in any rebuilding or resetting mode. I think they're still very legitimate, and I think honestly, McDermott, I think he got a pretty bad deal there, getting let go for
Right.
all he brought to that team. And I know the optics down the stretch didn't look great for him, but I thought he was still doing a damn good job as a head coach.
Hot take. It used to be that the AFC was loaded due to the quarterbacks. Now that the all the quarterbacks in the AFC have gotten paid, the rosters are starting to thin out, and the strength is in the NFC, where we saw quarterbacks on the rookie deal or quarterbacks who were not maxed out make the playoffs last year at an alarming rate. And I just wonder, is the NFC actually harder? And maybe you adjust totals and you're going to bet more NFC unders and more AFC overs.
Interesting thought. My only counter to that would be like half the league makes the playoffs now, it seems. And so
Yeah, that's fair.
it's like,
Right.
is it because of that, or is it because of just, again, putting a lot of stock in last year? 2 years ago, we were talking about Jaden Daniels taking over the league. And then last
That's a
year,
great
through
point.
injuries and everything that broke down, it's like that. And that was my point at the start is I really think we have to look at last year kind of independent of where a lot of these teams sit and really decide
Mhm.
what's for real and what's for not. And so I'm with you on what you're saying. I don't think the NFC out the North is the toughest division in football. The West is
Mhm.
second. You have an NFC South that is very, very soft. And then you have an NFC East, I think, is taking on a very different look this season than what it
Yeah.
has been seasons past. So those two divisions and how your schedule lines up around them really skews things. But with the expanded playoffs, like I've really devalued strength of schedule. I've really devalued how games are placed in the schedule as well when it comes to betting outlook, just because there's
Mm.
so much crossover now.
So if you're devaluing those, what are you putting more stock in?
Putting more stock in consistency of results week to week. Something I think I learned pretty well in the last couple of weeks is when you get, or last couple of seasons, pardon me, is a team like the Falcons is a really good example. When you look at their season last year, you had some monster wins and upsets and just some mind-numbing losses. And you had this massive disconnect between something like yards per play and yards per point and red zone efficiency. And it was broken down to me by a very successful bettor that when you have teams like that, where it's not lining up and it's really inconsistent, it's a really strong reflection of poor coaching. And
Right.
so something I'm looking at more is just trying to find those teams that are very consistent. And I know it's something that has to happen in season. It's not actionable now, but really in like evaluating past results and looking at teams coming in now, really emphasizing that. And then another thing that I would say that I'm as a devalue strength of schedule, I think a Bears team is really interesting is
Ooh.
trying to look at teams like that where the market views them one way, which is in general this year, like there's a lot of commentary about expected regression and luck
Yeah.
metrics and things like that. Over the last few years, those have become incredibly popular. Very interesting data points, but I'm really looking to see for season long things like where are those overrated and where might those be wrong. And so I would say those are two things that pop up in that strength of schedule sort of discussion.
Yeah. So the Claude co-work thing I built definitely likes the under on the Bears. There's a bunch of data I did. I started this little newsletter off basically copying how good you
Plug the
were with your
newsletter.
little newsletter. It's just JMax newsletter. I
There
don't
you
really
go.
promote it a lot because I don't want people saying you're selling picks. I'm not really selling picks. I'm kind of trying to break down games. And there's a pick in the games, but the Bears under is the number one according to the model. Or have the groups you talked to said anything Bears?
What number did you get the under at? Putting you on the spot.
Is it
That's
9.5? Let's see here. No,
so
Broncos is 9.5. Hold on.
here's what's interesting with the Bears as you check that out is I feel like 10 years ago, it was an automatic slam dunk under because you would get that big adjustment. The Bears are here. All of these last year numbers, the comebacks, the defensive stats that were fueled by takeaways, but not play by play. Like there's so many of these things that are just set to regress the next year. What I think is true now in 2026 is a lot of that gets priced into the market.
Right.
and you don't get as big of a fluctuation. And what I try to evaluate now is I look at a team with Ben Johnson now as the head coach that clearly every if you watch completely rebuilt that culture and completely rebuilt that team. But then also I think about Detroit. What happened to the Lions last year? Very different looking team now that you take him out. So there's almost 2 seasons now of proof within one that that's a very significant coaching change. And so when I look at the Bears, I tend to value the coaching change, the offensive uptick, the Caleb Williams emergence, the wealth of skill position players that they have, even with more out of the picture, and say, I think that is more for real than there's just this automatic regression, because I think that is now put into the prices that are in the
Mm.
market. And so I think about that division. I'm an under on the Lions. I don't think there's the bounce back this year. I think they've lost too much. I think the Packers have a very, maybe it's not quite evident, but a disconnect between LaFleur and that team and how they want to operate that I'm not buying into.
Oh, interesting.
And I think the Bears, even though they're priced third to win that division, are deserving to be priced a lot shorter than they are. So I'm actually bullish or positive on the Bears to win the division and to go over their win total. So I'm opposite the
Interesting.
co-work model. I hate to
Yeah,
push
no, hey,
back on your own pod, but I
no, that's
just
good.
I think Johnson's for real.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. I think some of the numbers on Caleb Williams, he had a couple magical comebacks and finishes there. He was 16th in QBR, 19th in EPA per play, 24th in success rate. And essentially, they're saying this guy's being priced as a superstar when in year one with Ben Johnson, he was just a average, like a league average quarterback or below average. Where are you on Caleb Williams?
I think there's more upside there. I
Well,
mean,
certainly, yeah,
if we go back to his rookie year, he was borderline being called a bust as he
a
went
bust.
through
Yeah.
multiple coaches and play callers and everything that came with that. So I think that's a tough spot for a QB that goes into his second season with all that turnover in the first season, has all of this mess around him to deal with from a publicity and a PR perspective, and all the stuff he had to deal with online. And you see that culture shift. To me, that carries on in year two. If that year was flipped, where we put year one out of our minds and we start year two effectively with the new team and the new culture and the new coach and the new play caller, that's a monster start to a year for a guy on a trajectory. And we give him sort of a bit of slack for coming back from what happened year one. I think that's a very positive sign. So
Yeah.
I
Interesting.
I think
So
there's upside
hold
there
on.
with that offense.
To go back to the Lions, is part of the reason the Lions drop again is because of the Ben Johnson loss?
I think so. They couldn't replicate what they had with him last year. And now you're trying to do it with another set of coordinators this year. You're trying to do it with an offensive line that was really the backbone. You think about, remember that game against the Rams in overtime where they just ran 9 or 10, 11 plays straight in OT and just went down the field, and you were
Yeah.
having just this train, not just this train of an old line just blowing back defensive lines. That's not there anymore either. So not only is it this team that was so full of hype and energy with Campbell and Johnson and taking over the league behind this dominant O line and everything was clicking. Now it's another year removed from that with more changes and different pieces.
Mhm.
I don't think that team is going to be the same to what we saw them. I think 2 years ago they had their window of opportunity and blew it. And to me, I go back to some of those post game pressers in the playoffs after the big loss. It just felt like Campbell and others knew, whether they wanted to admit it or not, that that was the
Mhm.
chance that they whiffed on. And so I think that window is closed now on the Lions, and I like the under this year.
Okay, so I got Bears under 9.5 minus 120. I'm seeing under 9.5 minus 141 now. Not a significant move at all. Well, I guess it depends how much money you're betting. But um, so you like the Bears. What was your take on the Packers again? Because I'm seeing 10.5, and they're weird because Watson gets hurt in that game against Denver. Parsons goes down also. They kind of are. They had to quarterback who cooked up some magic. I pick from the NFC if you couldn't pick the
I
Rams.
I just can't get there. I don't know what's truly going on in the scenes, but there's commentary coming out, anonymous surveys, the coach surveys about how Stanovich, the OC, and LaFleur, the head coach, just very low regarded by team, staff, players, whatever it might be. And I go back to thinking about consistency between games and progress over the course of the season. This is a Pac-Man. I know they had injuries. You give them a bit break for that. But it's been more inconsistent week to week and what you're getting, not only from the results perspective, and an offensive game plan perspective. And I'm not talking about the games where we went from Love to Willis and you're going from a 65% pass rate to a 75% run rate.
Right.
I get why that's going to be different, but just week to week, it's a team that feels very inconsistent. And I think it's a reflection of the coaching staff. And I don't think it's a bold take to say there's the hot seat brewing at the coaching staff
Ooh.
in Green Bay. So that's my take from the outside. And I just put that in contrast against Chicago, where it's just full of positives and
Positive, yeah.
energy and upward trajectory. And I would rather bet into that at that price than Green Bay.
It's interesting on the Eagles, Adam. It sounds like the narrative from the media is, well, they lost AJ Brown, they're in trouble. But internally, I don't know if you some of these interviews you've seen with like Jordan Mailata and a couple of Lane Johnson, they're making it sound like, without saying it openly, AJ Brown is addition by subtraction. That it was a confusing, annoying, just and they're not. These are my words, not theirs. It was just like a just constant disturbance. And now with that
Sure.
out of the picture, perhaps Jalen Hurts, who I think is still highly regarded, not everybody thinks that, is going to lead this offense. And I see 10 and a half. And the model doesn't give a definite over, but it's like a lean to the over. Where are you on the Eagles?
I know exactly what you're saying. There's a gambling term in prop betting that's called the squeaky wheel, which is when you're watching these press conferences, post game, early week, midweek, after the first practices, when a guy is complaining about not getting targets and not getting inclusion in the offensive game plan, and it's matched with coach commentary about, yeah, we'll get him some targets early, we'll work him in. That's typically a very popular over bet. And historically, they've actually hit very well when you find it and match it up. AJ Brown was a squeaky wheel damn near every week for
Yeah.
like a season and a half, 2 seasons. And so there was almost a filter when you're going through these to say, like, oh, well, AJ Brown is complaining again. We might not want to run and bet that over. This happens every single week. So I get that perspective of why the players feel that way. Where I don't fully kind of reconcile that is just how much he unlocked this offense and what they were able to do, because him opposite Smith, you had very contrasting styles in receivers. And when the Eagles were at their best, it were very, very hard to game plan against defensively, especially once Barkley was added, and that negated a lot of the pressure and what defenses could do up front. But you had both of those receivers with Goddard that could do very different things, and it was really hard to game plan against defensively. They now don't have that answer. And so after we saw the O line last year take a step back, we saw Barkley a lot less effective, which after his record season makes sense, but it was a big step back too. Now you remove Brown out of the offense. Like, are those changes amid all the coaching weirdness that seems to exist in Philly every single season between coach and play
Yeah.
caller? Like, how does that get reconciled? And
Yeah.
so I think Washington wins the East, and so I would be looking at under on Philly.
Dan Quinn. Interesting. Washington. Jaden Daniels, huh? But that would be your second hottest take after the Chargers. Do you have a third?
You would say the Commanders winning the East is not hotter than Chargers Super?
No, Chargers Super Bowl is number one for sure. Nobody has that.
Well, okay, but that's a perfect thing. All they've done is won 11 games back to back seasons. You have Harbaugh, who's a widely regarded and celebrated coach, coming in that's expected to progress. You have one of the best QBs in football. You have a great offensive mind taking over. But I agree. Like, I've told this to a couple people, and they look at me and give me a bit of a shake of the head and surprise. It's like, why I can't understand why this team is so disrespected. The
I mean,
Chargers.
I don't think it's disrespect. I
Like
think it's
there's
just like
not a
Super
belief.
Bowl is a quantum leap. You know, this goofy thing where, hey, you got to walk before you run in the NBA playoffs. You know, the Knicks last year had that tough out, then they win it this year. The Spurs, this was their first run. Same thing kind of applies in the NFL. You don't go from zero playoff wins to boom, Super Bowl. That doesn't usually happen. But I don't hate that take. I think Washington probably would be your second because
Okay.
Jaden Daniels 2 years ago, like you said, they were in the NFC Championship game. The only
And
problem is
now
that's a rickety old team, man. You like their free agent moves?
I think that it is a team that went and broke out with something very measurable and different. I know the fourth down luck 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago was insanely high, and that was not something that necessarily was sustainable. Daniels played out of his mind. I was very critical of that in the moment, but we now go on after last year, and again, you start to look at some of these prices and how they change in the drop. And I think very Washington should be getting, this is a good way to put it. Washington should be getting the betting attention and the hype that the New York Giants are getting with Harbaugh coming in. I talked about a lot of previews and thoughts and commentary that I had elsewhere. I'm hearing a lot of love for the Giants and a lot of
Yeah.
love for the Giants offense and where that can go. I don't see that at all. And I think the Cowboys defensively, even with additions, still have those, they'll still be willing to play crazy shootouts. But I think Washington now is the disrespected team in the East, and I see some value there.
And off the top of my head, I don't even know who their offensive coordinator is. I mean, I'm looking at the receiving core. Terry McLaurin, okay. Luke McCaffrey, Antonio Williams, Treylon
Break it down
Burks.
for me. Keep going.
Holy cow, that is a brutal group. But I mean, I like the Rashad White pickup. Maybe you get the 1-2 punch with faster running backs. I don't know, man. Again, you know, you've been doing this for a long time. You're probably seeing something I'm not. Washington. I haven't looked at the schedule. I'm assuming it's favorable, huh?
Don't look. I'll put it this way: with strength
Oh
of schedule,
gosh, are you kidding me?
but
They
with
open
strength of
with the
schedule right
Eagles.
now, I could make a case that every schedule is very difficult or very easy for every team, and I'm not going to find a spot where, based on schedule, that it is not already priced in to how a team's priced.
Okay.
And so that's where I hit the brakes a little bit on strength of schedule. And I also want to, again, with so many teams making the playoffs, like you just get situations down the stretch that tend to act very differently week 11, 12 onward, where teams take on a very different look. And so I'm I'm encouraging a pumping of the brakes on the strength of schedule talk.
Okay. What about, so then let's go to the Niners, who have the most miles traveled in NFL history.
Okay, so let's pump the brakes on that too, because that happens
It's,
every single season.
yeah, it's goofy. Yeah.
You know what else happens every single season? Niners lead the league in injuries.
Yeah.
So this is a really fun time to talk about the NFL because there's these topics that come up that sound really fun to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But when it actually comes to betting, it's either really, really, really well known or it just doesn't have an impact. Like it is bad that they have two international games. That's a bit crazy to me. Like Australia and then Mexico City, I believe, is where they play.
Yep.
So that's a bit extreme. But again, like they're always going to be traveling. Them or Seattle is always the team that's going to have the furthest miles traveled. So I'm pumping the brakes on that one too.
So of the stuff that is baked in or theoretically baked in, what do we think is maybe not baked in to the line and where it stands currently in what, June?
This year specifically with so many coordinator and play caller and coach changes, I don't know if it's the most ever, but I don't remember 20 plus changes. Like it's a very, very, very
Is it
big
21
number.
play callers on offense?
If top of my head, it's 10 head coaches and 20 offensive coordinators have changed this year.
So that's the thing. I guess from a gambling perspective, you've got to do a deep dive analysis on who the hell these guys are, what their tendencies are. But for instance, Declan Doyle, the guy in Baltimore, how can we know his tendencies if he's never called plays?
That's not there. That's what's not priced in. David Blau in Washington, to answer your question.
Do you like him? He was a bad quarterback. sorry, David.
Kellen Moore wasn't a great quarterback, and he's a hell of a play caller.
Well, he was a great quarterback at Boise State.
Well, I'm talking NFL here.
Okay, fair enough. David
So,
Blau. Yeah,
but
that's who it is.
it's
Okay.
interesting. But that's a big. We talked about trends at the start. You have so many of these young guys coming in. McVay was forever the youngest, and now he's like sixth or
Great point.
seventh. Yeah, I know he's 40 now, which sounds like a million years old in the NFL, but that's a big trend that's going on in the league. So, yeah, to answer your question, what are you going to get out of these offensive changes? And I think compared to last year, there is going to be an article posted on a very popular sports news website in the United States by someone who's been writing for a very long time. And it's going to be regression candidates, both positive and negative, for this coming season. And that is going to clearly reflect for anywhere between 5 and 12 teams what the market is pricing in. And so you now have on the vast majority of those teams a new play caller or head coach or OC that's going to bring in something different. And so we know what's moving the number now. We know what everyone tends to value. The unknown, like you mentioned, what are you going to get from play callers? What are you going to get from coaches? Are teams going to change tempo? Are they going to be more of an under, more of an over? Are they going to be more efficient? Like a team like the Saints, is that offense going to take a massive leap late down the stretch last year? There were a ton of positives. That team is not being priced as a team that could possibly reflect how much of a leap they could take on offense. A lot of things like that, trying to match it up. That's where you have
Yeah.
to be looking if you're trying to find an edge.
So that's great stuff. And that's where I think AI and Claude and Cowork and Google Gemini or whatever you want can help you. Now it's going to take a lot of searches. It's going to take a lot of questions, and you have to double check, obviously, with sports because they get shit wrong all the time. But that's the kind of thing I think, Adam, that people are going to try to get ahead of, and some you're going to hit, some you're going to whiff on. Any
Can
final?
I give a piece as someone who's bet professionally for a number of years, but this is now season 18 betting the NFL. Can I give one suggestion to anybody
Yeah,
listening who might be thinking about that?
please do. Yeah, yeah.
Focus on your favorite team. I think is the best advice I can give. And I know there'll be contradictory advice to that where it says, well, you're going to be a homer and you're only going to bet on your team and what have you. But my counterpoint to that now is with a million props per game and a million props in play during the game and prediction markets now allowing you to bet on things that we never thought was possible on both the yes and the no. If you're an expert on your favorite team and now you have all these tools you're mentioning to help you out, and you can go a little bit deeper on the new play caller or how receivers are going to be used, or did the second round receiver that got drafted impress in camp and now he's going to get extra snap share so his props are more valuable. There's a very good chance that anybody listening to this has a very specialized knowledge around one team that they follow in, we could call it the top 15 percentile of fans across the nation. If you just elevate that a little bit and do a little bit more of what you like for the team you like, I
Mm.
promise you somewhere in September and you look through the betting menu, something really good is going to pop out to you. If you just put in a little bit of extra attention to your favorite team, you'll find something because there's so many ways to bet this now. I think back 18 years, we had pregame point spread, over under money line. And if we were lucky, we got a halftime line that we could bet on for the second half. And that was pretty well the extent of it.
Yeah.
Now there's a million ways to do it. So that would
Yeah.
be my point on that to start.
Speaking of favorite teams, I know that the NFL hates when people talk about tanking,
Oh
but
boy. I know where
in
you're going.
yeah, listen, this is going to be a every year they say this a legendary draft class. It's so loaded, Arch Manning, blah blah blah. Okay, we got it. But if you look at some of these NFL teams, I feel like moves that they made were designed to, hey, we're going to get like Seattle. We're going to load up the roster, but we're not going to fix the quarterback. We'll find him in the draft. And I'm looking at your favorite team in mine, the Jets, who have a pretty damn good roster, Adam. They just don't have a
Don't,
quarterback at
no,
all.
don't. I'm not going there, but keep going.
Yeah, I think they're going to be bad. I'm not thinking they're going to be good. The
Okay.
Cleveland Browns just traded Myles Garrett. They have a good roster, but again, the quarterback situation is very underwater. This Colts team. I thought they were going to be missing Daniel Jones for at least the first 4 games, but I see him practicing in some capacity. I don't know. We'll see. I think the Raiders are going to be pretty good. Who are the other? There's 2 others that are bad. Oh, the Arizona Cardinals are the other one. It's like a race to the bottom as they are horrific. Jacoby Brissett, I think, is still like pissed at them and their quarterback situation is unsettled. Do you think those 3 teams, and maybe I forgot one, are kind of in the mix, soft tanking, saying, hey, we just want to build a roster. We don't care about our quarterback play?
I thought you were going to force me to say the Jets had a great draft and it's going to change the roster and there's optimism. So I'm
No,
glad
no,
we're
no, no,
not
no,
going
no.
that direction
Hell
because
no.
after having O ROI and D ROI a couple years ago and that leading to absolutely nothing, I'm not falling for the bait again. Do I think soft tanking exists or will happen? I I don't because of two things. I think we overanalyze a, for example, a team like Arizona, who's an underdog in every single game,
Yeah.
that has really no expectation of being decent. Like that's just going to be a bad football team all season. And we might look and say, hey, the Cardinals are tanking. No, it's just a bad football team with a coach I think is over his head. So I think that happens more than teams actually soft tank. And then this would be the second thing. And again, I'm not a massive college football guy, nor am I a big college football evaluator. But from working with a group who specialized in college football and college basketball, betting professionally, what I will say is a very kind of popular thought just discussed, not necessarily actionable from a betting perspective, is now with NIL and the deals that are going on within college, QBs are not sitting in these programs and developing in the same way that they once were. And that's leading to a lot more uncertainty within the draft, especially entering the first year
Hmm.
where college is now becoming kind of the individual performance to gather the attention and capitalize on that. And the transition into the NFL is becoming a lot less predictable than it once was. Again, going back 5, 10, 15 years. And so I don't have like concrete data on that, but thinking about it and what we're like these guys are going to be going to bad football teams in bad situations because they're going to be drafted high in the first round
Mm-hmm.
with the NFL evolving so much with young coaches coming in and new schemes and new systems. There's now this very high risk boomer bust, I think, with a lot of these guys that are being drafted very high. So I don't know if the upside and guarantee in the call it soft tank is there like it used to be. Might be a wild, outlandish take, but
No, no, no.
that's the
That's
most
interesting.
reasonable thing I've heard about
Yeah.
it.
Well, Cam Ward. I remember last year I was bullish on the Titans, and listening to you now, I remember. Oh yeah, that guy played, I believe, at 3 colleges in 3 years. It was a meteoric rise. Maybe he went to Washington State for two, whatever. And he struggled last year. But you saying Dable earlier is kind of a bat signal to me to drill down a little bit. I love Salah. We loved him with the Jets. He was on track to do a pretty damn good thing, and then of course Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. But damn,
Circle
Adam.
this one in
Yeah.
regards to the Titans. The Titans play the Giants, I think, week 3.
Oh,
I I mean, there's obviously no line on the game yet. There'll be a point spread, but there's no total and no team total. The team total for the Titans is going to have to be 35 and a half, which will never happen for me not to bet the over in that game. Like I
Dable.
promise you, Brian Dayball has been prepping offensively for
Yeah.
that game
That's
already for 5 weeks in the back of his mind as he puts his head on his pillow at night. That is going to be just him again, going back to those great Bills days where there were just some amazing opening scripts. He is going to throw everything at that team. I
yeah.
think
How
it's
about
an
this one?
exciting offense, but you're not getting me on the Titans over.
Chargers at Dolphins, December 27th.
Oh,
Mike McDaniel gonna hang up
oh,
50 burger? Miami,
55.
Miami
Give
is
me
bad.
56. That's
Miami's in that group of tankers. I'm sorry, I forgot them. Malik Willis and like a bunch of guys. That is such a good angle. This new assistant coaches. So I will be spending the next 5 hours.
well, we've
Um,
got like again, there's so many of them, and
yeah.
it's some of them left on good terms and promoted, but there's a real thing to the vengeance and the head-to-head matchups that happen week to week between staffs and extra motivation. It's a tricky thing to keep up with, but that's a very real
I
thing
love it.
when it
All
comes
right,
to play
Adam
calling.
Chernoff. This is 45 powerful minutes on gambling. It's good to have you back in the fold. I assume you're going to be doing a cross country tour now that you're, um, fit and have all this time on your hands and wealthy. I just threw that in there. Thanks a lot, man. Have a, great, great summer in Lovely Canada. I hear Ottawa's amazing in June. Have you been there?
Weirdly enough, I have actually been to Ottawa in June, and I can confirm it
Pretty
is
awesome.
absolutely beautiful. I think World Cup in Vancouver is a lot more fun at the moment.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
geez.
not there, but Canada's pretty good in June, July, and August. So
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot. Take it easy.
Thanks very much. Chat soon.